Hello and welcome to another video trying to get you the very top grades. Now today I'm giving you short 1 to 2 minute bits of advice on every single question in the English language paper 1 and paper 2. That's 10 questions and this video hopefully will be only around 20 minutes long. Now there is one bit of information that I'd really find useful from you. YouTubers tend to stare straight at the camera like this, filling it with their great heads, and students seem to like this. However, the research says you learn better if what I teach is accompanied by hand gestures. So in the video that follows, I shall be standing, and you might think, those hand gestures are really annoying me, Mr. Salles. Can you calm it down? So you've got this to contrast with that. But regardless of whether you want to post anything, this revision is everything you could possibly need to know about the English language papers. Good luck. Hello and welcome to my 1 minute video on how to answer question 1 for both paper 1 and paper 2. Now there is a big problem with this question. The examiners think they're being lovely to you, and so they give you the easiest question first. In fact, it is so easy that 95% of students in the country, even the idiots who you think are rubbish at English, still get really high marks in it. The average mark is around 95%. So what's the problem with that? Surely that's a good thing. You go into the exam, you get marks quickly. Bob's your uncle, you're going to do really well. No. What happens is this: your brain is encouraged to think the rest of the exam will also be easy. But what happens? The rest of the exam is not all easy, and consequently you do worse because there's this big hump that suddenly comes up to you and you've got to overcome it. And it feels a much bigger hump because the first question was so simple. However, if you change the order of the questions and leave question 1 till last, it will suddenly be super easy to get loads more marks for the rest of the paper. And finally, leaving it to the end means that if you're running out of time, you can easily bag those 4 marks because they'll only take you about 2 minutes to get. So don't do it first. Do it. Hello and welcome to the 1 minute secrets of paper 1, question 2. In this question, you need to talk about imagery. And imagery only really means 4 things. It means personification, simile, metaphor, alliteration. Yes, there are all other kinds of things that will turn up in the exam, but those 4 are definite. The others are maybe, but these will occur every single time. Next, you do not need to write about sentence forms. You could if you wanted to, but the complex sentence will always appear, and the complex sentence will always be in a list. And therefore, if you learn to write about lists and the effect of lists on the reader, you will be able to get top marks. The top rate skill is to be able to write about contrast. You will see that the writer has chosen this detail here in order to contrast it with something that is opposite there. Old and young, upper class, lower class, morally good, evil, whatever the contrast is, you will spot it. It will always be there. If you can, write in P sentences rather than P paragraphs. And always, all the way through your answer, link what you're saying to the effect on the reader. Not the reader's feelings, but the reader's thoughts. How does the writer control what we think? Hello and welcome to the 1 minute video on paper 1 question 3. This is the change of focus question. It is a structure question, and consequently what the examiner wants you to do is write about how the focus changes through each point. Well, the obvious way that it changes is every single paragraph there's a different change of focus. You could write about them. However, you only get the marks if you relate that change of focus to how the writer is trying to control how we think about a character or an issue. You can predict what these issues will be, and usually they will be around the patriarchy. They'll be around the roles of men and women in society, or it'll be about education over time in society, or it will be about class. Those things are bound to come up in every single exam question. The next thing you'll notice about structure is all texts are organised around contrast. Writers delight in giving you something positive and then something negative. Spot it and then explain why. What is the writer trying to make you think? And you will get top marks. And finally, because it's a structural question, the examiner will ask you to think about a circular structure. They will go to the ends of the earth to find an extract that actually has a circular structure to it. Well, what does that mean? It means that at the ending, they return to an idea or theme or image that was at the beginning. And that makes it circular. We go back to the beginning and you get the marks by explaining the effect on the reader's thoughts. That's the effect on the reader. Hello and welcome to this 1-minute video on question 4 of paper 1. Here you'll be asked to zoom in on a particular part of the text and think about your impressions as a reader. However, the key word is to evaluate, and consequently to evaluate you need to consider more than one interpretation. The easiest way to do that is to think that texts are constructed around these 5 big ideas. Number 1, attitudes to social class. Number 2, attitudes towards women in society and the patriarchy. Number 3, attitudes towards education. Number 4, attitudes towards poverty and the deserving poor. And number 5, attitudes towards religious faith and science. The easiest way to access these is to ask who is in control in this text and why. And the answer will be from one of those 5 things. This means that the tactic is not to wholly agree or wholly disagree with the statement that you are given, but to find a partial agreement or partial disagreement. This will show you are evaluating. Read the text below. And as I keep telling you, to get more marks, you need to write more. To write more, you need to stop writing in P paragraphs, but P sentences, where you get many more ideas into fewer words so you can make many more points and get many more marks. Hello and welcome to this 1-minute video on question 5 of paper 1. You are probably looking at the describe question, but the examiner wants a structure to your description. No writer in the universe puts into their novel a description that has a structure. That's just not the job of the description. The job of the description is to tell you something about the character or the plot. There is no structure to it. So what is the solution? It is the 6 camera methods. You take a camera and you place it somewhere in your scene and describe what's going on. Then at the same time you place your camera somewhere else and describe a new part of the same scene going on at the same time, and so on with 6 cameras. But not just any random order of 6 cameras, you do it in this order. Zoom out from a bird's eye view, then zoom in, then zoom out, then zoom in, and then zoom out and leave. That gives you a structure. And a final thing that makes your writing absolutely awesome is that when you zoom in on a motif. And a motif is a repeated idea. For example, you might zoom in on a guitar and then again zoom in on some music, and then at the end zoom in on the guitar again and then leave. You can see how I do it in this video here. And that is called the 6 camera method. Never fails. And 16 of your marks are basically for punctuation, spelling, and how you construct your sentences. Therefore, you need to go away and learn how to use colons, semicolons, and brackets. Make sure that you get commas right every single time. If you comma splice and use them instead of a full stop, you will get marked down. No questions asked. Go away and learn to use commas. Finally, if you start each and every sentence with a different word, it will guarantee that your sentences are interesting and your marks will rocket. You might be doing the narrative question. Here are the key things. Start with a crisis. It can be dramatic or it can be tiny and mundane. Do I use the new toothpaste to brush my teeth now? Yes or no? Sounds stupid, but you could have that crisis in your story. The next thing you need is a flashback of some sort. And so there could be some dental disaster that happened earlier in this person's life or happened to a friend. You will then want something like a circular narrative. This is something the examiners love. So when you get to the end of the story, you will come back to the idea of toothpaste or toothbrushes or teeth. There might be some, I don't know, you kiss and your braces lock and you're stuck together with your girlfriend or your boyfriend and this either ends in future marriage or disaster. You hate each other and you both have to be snipped apart by firemen. I exaggerate for effect there, but you can see that your crisis does not have to be massive. The next bit of advice is always try to start your sentences in a different way, with a different word, unless it is for effect. That will just force you to write interesting sentences. You won't be able to help yourself, and the reader will go, "Ooh, love this, want to keep reading." Another way of getting a brilliant structure is to use the 6-camera method I taught you in the description question. Follow the link here. And finally, 16 out of your 40 marks are awarded for accuracy of punctuation. Make sure that you know how to use commas instead of full stops, how to use brackets, colons, semicolons, and that is all you need, apart from making sure you use them in your answer. When you do, you can get full marks. Hello and welcome to this video on paper 2, question 2. It's going to be about a minute. This question asks you to summarise source A and source B. You would think that that just summarises the facts, but no. What you must do is infer, work stuff out. To show the examiner you're doing that, do this. In your first sentence, point out the similarities, but then say there is a difference. With this phrase, there is a difference of emphasis. That will fit every question. There are 2 words which prove you are inferring. They are this. This suggests, this implies. Use those 2 words, you will always infer. You need vocabulary which shows you are looking at differences. They are whereas, in contrast, on the other hand. Use those phrases and you will always be summarising differences. And remember, the word infer is not in the question. You will easily forget to do it unless you've watched the video and committed this to memory. Infer for all the marks in question 2. Hello and welcome to the 1-minute video on paper 2, question 3. The key thing about this question is that it is only about 1 extract, so you should do this before question 2, which is about 2 extracts and is therefore more difficult. Question 3 is just a language question, which means you quote. But what are you quoting? You are looking at the methods of the writer, and the key 4 methods, which will always appear no matter what the question, are simile, metaphor, personification, alliteration, the big 4 that come up every single year. Yes, there will be other things that come up as well, and you can spot them when they arrive, but you know the 4 are there, so do not panic. There are 4 extra ones which will also appear. There will always be some sort of repetition. There is likely to be a long sentence that lists things. There will always be contrast, as you will have seen in my videos. All texts are constructed between contrasts of positive and negative. And remember, you only get the marks when you say how those methods control what the reader thinks. That is where you're going to get into the top grades. And a final tip which I give you for all these exams is write in P sentences rather than P paragraphs. If you don't know how to do that, follow the link up there. Good luck. Hello and welcome to this 1-minute video on question 4 of paper 2. This is the comparison question and it compares the writer's perspectives. Because one of your texts will be a 19th century text, they are bound to have one of these perspectives in it. Either it will be about education or the patriarchy, the role of women in society, or it will be about class, then the class system, or it will be about poverty, and number 5, it will be about the conflict between religion and science. If you research what the 19th century authors or society thought about those things, you will be able to get top marks in this question because you will know what you're looking for in the text. How the writer does this is the methods. You must comment on the methods. The main methods you have met before: simile, metaphor, personification, alliteration. But the key one that these writers will also use is contrast, because with contrast you show what you think is good compared to what you think is bad, and because it's the writer's perspective, they will always be saying, reader, this is good, but that is bad. and contrast will always be everywhere in the text. You will also need a vocabulary for writing about rhetorical techniques. Rhetorical techniques help writers to persuade. You will find them in Mad Father's Crotch. You need to check out this video to find out what those are if you don't know them already. Good luck. Hello and welcome to Paper 2, Question 5. This will be a question which asks you to argue and persuade. There are 15 techniques I want you to use. They are called Mad Father's Crotch. You want to watch that video to find out what they mean if you don't. But not all of those 15 techniques are equal. The most important is the anecdote, the little story you can tell at the beginning. You need to put that at the beginning of your article. The next most important thing is creating an enemy, finding things to attack before you give the solutions that you like. To revise for this, go to any newspaper and read their opinion pieces. Their opinion pieces are full of these mad crotch techniques. These are called rhetorical devices. Learn them by heart, practice using them, and you cannot fail. This is a brilliant question. You can over-exaggerate as much as you like. That's called hyperbole. And you can genuinely have real fun with it. My final tip is for you to think of things which are long-term. Other students in the exam will just be thinking about the immediate. But if you start thinking about the long-term consequences of things in 10 years' time, 20 years' time, or 50 years' time, your answer will be much different to everybody else's and you will get the higher marks. Good luck. And 16 of your marks are basically for punctuation, spelling and how you construct your sentences. Therefore, you need to go away and learn how to use colons, semicolons and brackets. Make sure that you get commas right every single time. If you comma splice and use them instead of a full stop, you will get marked down. No questions asked. Go away and learn to use commas. Finally, if you start each and every sentence with a different word, it will guarantee that your sentences are interesting and your marks will rocket. Hello and welcome to this 1-minute video on how to plan your answer to question 5 of paper 2. I am going to introduce you to the 5 whys technique. Why should we all keep a pet? So number 1, we should keep a pet because it teaches us to care for something that is vulnerable and needs our help and to show it our love. Why is that a good idea? Well, if we learn how to care for a pet, we will learn how to care for each other and have a more inclusive society. Why is that important? Well, a more inclusive society will mean that we live in communities where we help each other and we will lead happier lives and longer lives. Why is that important? Well, in the future, resources will become scarcer and we will need to rely on each other's help more and more because we can't rely on the state to look after us in our old age or when our families fall on hard times. Why is that important? Well, because we all want to live in a society in which people help each other. This is our moral purpose as human beings and will give us real satisfaction. Why is that important? Because research shows that when you live in a society with friends, you have not just a happier life, but a longer and more productive life. And therefore, it's not the extra years that you live, but the extra life you put into your years that will make the difference to you. And having a pet will mean you will always have something to share your good times with. Why is that important? Well, people do not tend to die at the same age. Consequently, they will always have a companion when they grow old and their partner dies. So now you can see how the 5 whys work. They take you into the future. They give you a structure to your writing super quickly. You don't have to plan it all in advance. You just know you follow the next pattern of 5 whys. Now, in 45 minutes, you might get through 2 5 whys, or perhaps even 3, and your answer will be much more sophisticated than anyone else's in the exam room, and that means you will get the top grades. And I know the framing of this is a little bit weird, but look, there I am as a gorilla.